Hi guys, I'm standing here with Michael from Zoink Games, and yeah, you are welcome to introduce yourself a little bit at first.
Yeah, hello, my name is Michael Forsland, and I'm the publishing and marketing guy over at Zoink Games, and we're here showing Flipping Death and also a fair game, both on Switch and other consoles.
So you mentioned Flipping Death. What is special about the game? What are the main features that take it apart from other games?
Yeah, it's an interesting game because it's a mix between an adventure game and a platforming game. And the main mechanic is that you flip between two different sides. That's why it's called Flipping Death. So on the one side you have the dead side where you play as Penny, who's the main character of the game. And with a single button press you can possess all the living people on the other side, which is the living side. And then the entire world flips around and you control these characters on the other side. And you use these people in order to solve different puzzles. So if you'd imagine like a traditional point-and-click game, but instead of you have items that you collect, in this game you have the people that are the kind of like work like the items. So in one early puzzle you need some guy that has something sharp in his hand, and then you find a dentist and you possess him and you use him in order to solve the puzzle.
So is it more like a jump and run or more like solving puzzle? How is the rating?
Yeah, it's the living side is like an adventure game, traditional adventure game where you have all these characters and the puzzles. But the dead side is where you play as Penny, and then you have a scythe which you can throw and move around with. And that side is more of a platforming style kind of game. We did a game called Stick It to the Man a few years ago, and that mixed adventure and platforming in a way we thought worked really well, and apparently a lot of people thought as well. So this is Flipping Death is very much a spiritual successor to that game.
And how big is the focus to the storyline? So at first, what is the main storyline of the game? And yeah, how much goes it in depth?
Yeah, at Zoink Games we spend a lot of time with the story, and a lot of time is spent on creating interesting characters. So normally when we start a game, we start with the story and the characters and all that, and then we kind of build a game upon that story. So it's very much time spent on the story creation. But in Flipping Death, you play as Penny, and she dies at the beginning of the game. Actually, it's a kind of dark game, but it's a dark game set in a comedic twist, like in a comedy world. So it's not a morbid game. It's like a fun game, but still has dark humor to it. And she dies, and the main plot is that you need to find out what happened to her. And there's a lot of fun and crazy things going on, and you help a lot of ghosts, which are kind of trapped in this this other side, which is the dead side. And early in the beginning of the game, she actually takes on Death's job. Death, he actually goes on vacation. He goes actually to the moon because no one dies there. And he goes there on vacation and leaves her in charge of his tasks. So that's why she can possess people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
doesn't really make sense, but it's a fun story.
And when I compare the story to other games like Stick It to the Man or The Core Gang, yep. Is it darker or and is it the same style of humor?
Yeah, it's very much the same style of humor. I wasn't around for the Core Gang, but Stick It to the Man, it's very much similar humor, similar people who made the game. Well, the same people that made the game, and we have the same script writer, which helps us to write the comedy, and using the same voice actors as well. So it's a very much the same kind of humor that we had in Stick It to the Man.
Oh, great.
Yeah. If you like Stick It to the Man, you'll like Flipping Death as well.
Another feature that is for example, listed on the website is the HD Rumble that is implemented from the Nintendo Switch. How can you explain how it is implemented in the gameplay?
Actually, I can't. But the thing is, we're still in development, and we are releasing the game on different platforms than Switch. We're doing on PS4, Xbox One, and Steam as well. So we haven't really got to that part where everything is working as it should at the moment. So we're to be determined on that point. We haven't implemented correctly yet.
Do you know? Okay. Do you know when it will finally release? When it will release, and will it release for all the platforms at the same time?
That's also a good question. As I mentioned earlier, we're working on a game called Fe as well. And we're releasing Fe early next year, early 2018. And since these both games are kind of finished at the same time, we don't want to release them at the same time because that's just going to confuse everyone because they're so different. So we're going to release Fear first, and after, I would guess like a few months, weeks, maybe months, we'll release Flipping Death. And since we don't know when we're releasing Fear yet, we don't really know when we're releasing Flipping Death. And Fear is coming to all platforms on day one, but Flipping Death we're not really sure. We're hoping to release on all platforms on day one, but we're not really sure. It's hard and challenging for a semi-small indie development team to release on all 4 platforms at the same time, so we're not sure. But I would love to.
Yeah, of course. You mentioned Fee, and Fee is an EA Origins game. How does this fact change the development compared to Flipping Death?
Well, when we signed with EA, nothing really changed. All they did was provide like publishing support and production support. But the creative vision that Klaus and Andreas and Hugo, which are the creative directors for the game, the original vision they had from the get-go is unchanged. I mean, we're making the game we wanted to make from the start, but EA is just helping us getting the games out in front of millions of people instead of like less people. Yeah.
In the trailers, you don't see much of the core gameplay. So is it more about, it's basically the same question as in Flipping Death, is it more about jump and run or exploring, or what is it really about?
Yeah, it's can't give away too much of the story, but you wake up early in the beginning of the game as a small cub, like a small animal cub, and not much is told about where you come from and what happened to you. And you make your way to this forest, and the whole game is actually wordless, so we don't have any dialogue telling you what to do, but in fact you talk to animals to connect with the forest. It's very much like I would say the core gameplay is a 3D platformer, but it's set in this atmospheric journey kind of esque world where everything is it's vivid, colorful, and very almost dark and Nordic. So it's a very atmospheric game, but the core mechanic is that you can jump around, and it's very easy and fun to get around in the world.
It has also the feature that you can connect with other animals in order to solve puzzles, I think. How much will this affect the gameplay?
That's a good question. I'm not sure actually, because since EA is running the show on the publishing side, the creative directors are the ones to ask about that. I'm not really sure actually. Sorry.
Okay. So another question that is not really, I think it's not really easy to answer, but will it have the same frame rate and resolution on Switch? Do you know if there's something? Same question for Flipping Death also, because we have seen games in the past that couldn't couldn't be as good on Switch as on PS4, for example. So yeah, I'm asking.
Yeah, it's actually I'm not sure about that since we just announced it 2 days ago, the Switch version. But I know we wouldn't release anything on Switch unless we thought it would run really, really well. So my hope is that it's going to be the best frame rate, but I'm not sure actually, so sorry. Okay.
But also for Flipping Death, it's not, because it's on development, it's not sure?
Since it's still in development, we're using a game engine called Unity, which works really well for us as a small indie studio. And the game runs on all platforms. I mean, it runs on PC, it runs on Switch, and it runs on PS4 and Xbox One. It runs really well. But since we're still in development, we haven't actually, started working on particular versions yet. In this moment, we're just building the game, adding fun stuff, and making sure it's finished. At the end, towards the end of the development phase, we're going to start implement specific feature for the different versions, like HD Rumble and stuff like that.
So, the last question. The last question is a bit more. The last question is a bit more personal. If you could choose one of the games, which would you choose and why? Or, yeah.
You have to choose between those games. Yeah. Well, I'd say they're vastly different. I mean, I love Flipping Death because it has this crazy humor, and it's such a weird game. Like every time we see a new chapter or add a new character, or just sit and shake my head in disbelief because it's so crazy. And so I really love that sense of humor. So in that sense, I like Flippin' Death, but being like an old school gamer, I really like that Fe is like a platformer in that sense. You can move around and you can do all these jumps and cool glide effects and stuff like that. You can climb trees. So in that sense, I think Flippin' Death, Fe is an awesome game as well. But it's impossible to choose, man. I don't know.
I was expecting this answer.
Yeah, I mean, ask me again when they've both been out for like a year, and I'll get back to you which one I prefer more. Or check my Steam profile, see which one has the most achievements.
I will ask you. Thanks for the interview. It was really an honor, and I'm really looking forward to the 2 games. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. If you want more information, follow us at Zoink Games on Twitter, Facebook, and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm Michael, and just hit us up if you have any questions.
Thanks a lot.